Hello, everybody.
What?
I'm actually recording.
Oh, no.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I tried to welcome you with a nice musical number, but...
Sorry, I ruined it. Welcome to Historia.
I'm Kylie.
I'm Jamie.
And we are here to, once again, talk about history.
Oh, yeah, we got one of my favorites today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, once again.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Today, we are talking about... Drumroll. Disney.
Oh, I am a Disney kid.
Oh, love Disney.
I
still watch Disney movies when I'm stressed because adult life is hard.
Yeah.
And like the other day, I was like, I just want to watch Tarzan. What did I do? I watched Tarzan.
One of the best Disney soundtracks by far.
Oh,
Phil
absolutely.
Collins is just
I might go as far to say it is the best. That and
Mm-hmm.
Lion King, I think, are the top two. But
Mulan has even though there's not a lot, it's good. I like
True. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about today. So,
So what part of Disney are you talking about?
today I will be covering Mr. Walt Disney.
Interesting.
What will you be talking about today?
I am going to be talking about Disneyland's opening day, which it's so much fun to research because it's just absolutely chaotic. And then I'll go a little bit into just the tunnels of Disney World just because it's pretty interesting and it's a great system that they used.
Cool. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Before we begin, I want to quickly say that I'm sorry for calling, you know when I was talking about Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
And I was talking about the movie of her being a babysitter?
Yeah.
The creepy one. I said it was called, like, Don't Forget to Knock. It's actually called Don't Bother to Knock. Because I tried to search it. And then I was like, I called it the wrong name. So I wanted to fix that mistake.
At least you are.
Yeah. And also, they don't know if she actually was holding a phone when she was found. So, yeah, so there's a lot of mystery to that. But anyway, I wanted to correct that before people come for me. I still need to watch that movie, though.
I know, I'm really bad. Well, it's hard to find older films.
It's on YouTube, but you have to pay for it. I don't know how much it is. I didn't look close enough. But anyway, yeah. We made it through another week.
Yeah, I know. I'm exhausted.
It's a big one. Finished up the school year. I'm on
yeah.
summer break for like a week, and then summer school starts. But
Because as we're filming this, it's Memorial Day weekend.
it is.
It's been very rainy here. It feels like Washington State.
We are now in Seattle.
We are now in Seattle.
It has rained every single day. So you have to plan, like if you're going to hikes, you have to plan in the morning.
Exactly. I got up at 5:30 this morning to go hiking, and I did not take a nap, so I've been going all day. We apologize.
There are dogs here.
They're very loud dogs.
Yes. So nothing we can do about it.
Nope.
We
Just
need to hire a babysitter.
a babysitter, a dog sitter.
Yeah, just for our podcast time.
Oh yeah, fun.
But for now, we're just gonna have to deal with it, and it's fine.
You'll learn to love their
noises.
vibrant energy.
Yeah, all the background noises you'll hear. Can't go wrong. All
It's
right.
just nonstop, but here we go.
I'm going to jump right in because I know we have a lot of information today, and we'll make this all one. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
So I'm going to start again by talking about Mr. Walt Disney.
Dude, I love that last name.
Oh, it would be so cool to have that as a last name.
I think I've only seen it like maybe a couple of other times.
Really?
But it's very
I don't
rare.
think I've seen it.
I don't think it's a normal or like a common last name like Smith or...
Mm-hmm. It'd be super cool though.
Williams,
Like,
yeah.
my last name's Disney. Ha! Okay, anyway.
No
Of course I want to go back to the birth of him.
Wow.
I don't know why I said it like that, but anyway. Just ignore it. He was Mr. Walt Disney. Why do I keep calling him? Walt Disney was born in Chicago, Illinois,
Ooh.
on December 5th, 1901.
Oh.
He was born to Flora and Elias Disney, and his dad was a contractor, so he like built a lot of homes in their actual church that they went to.
Okay.
So he actually built their childhood home. So they lived in the house that Elias built.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so that's what his job was at first. Now, they were living in Chicago, and At this time, he had 3 older brothers. So he had Herbert, Raymond, and Roy. Those names will come back up. So you'll hear them. If I say Herbert, you know who that is. And then they ended up having another kid when Walt was 2 years old. They had a girl named Ruth.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, so they had 5 children.
Oh my God.
And if we're thinking about the time period, it wasn't always easy to raise 5 kids. But while they were living in Chicago, they started to notice there was a lot of crime happening. And of course, having a bunch of young kids, it's maybe not an area they want to be in. So they actually ended up moving to Missouri.
Wow, that's a shift of environment.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And basically, Elias wanted to farm. So
what?
He went from building houses in Chicago to being a farmer in Missouri.
I mean, at that time, I can see that because the whole United States was still building
right
at that point, so it makes
and the
sense.
farming industry, it was a good thing to get into. So they were a good family overall. They didn't have a lot of issues. I heard that Flora, Walt's mom, was just so fun to be around and just had a really big personality, and she just loved her kids so much.
You know what's really unique about that name?
Huh?
Sleeping Beauty. Flora was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh, wow. I'm sure that it came from her, maybe?
I have no idea. I think it's just more kind of flowery, I don't know, names.
It's a cute name. I like it. So, yeah, she was always really sweet to her kids. She loved her kids a lot. Elias, now back in this time, it was popular to use, spanking and beating, to their kids without without it being, so he would use corrective beatings on them to correct their behaviors. He was a little bit more strict than Flora, and then Flora would help them feel better by reading them fairy tales at night.
Oh,
so this sparked a lot of Walt's imagination and creativity. Was the stories that Flora would read to them at night, and Walt would just stay up, just fascinated by the stories while the rest of the kids would fall asleep.
Oh, I bet.
So from the very start of his life, he was very into getting sucked into different stories, which is kind of cool. So as they grew up, I'm just going to kind of jump to the older time. So a few years later, the 2 eldest sons, Raymond and Herbert, they left home. And Roy and Walt were now working in the farm with their dad. So it was their first job, but they weren't really getting paid for it, but they were just there to help. While they were working in the farm, Walt would kind of slack a little bit because he'd get caught up in wanting to draw the animals. So he'd find a place to sit in the farm and start sketching what the animals looked like.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah. Or he would just make up games. So he always tried to make things fun and exciting. So that's what they were doing while they were working on the farm. So a lot of times he probably wasn't working, but that's okay.
He's a kid, too. It's
exactly. He's a kid. You can't expect him to do all of that. But and then his father, Elias, came down with typhoid fever, which is, of course, that wonderful bacterial disease. We love it.
Gross.
He recovered, but it affected his body badly, and he couldn't farm anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which makes sense. So they kind of knew time to have a new start again. They moved to a house in Kansas City. They're kind of going back into the city life a little bit. And his dad, Elias, purchased a newspaper route. And he counted on his sons to help with it.
Why is this guy he keeps going from one job to the next?
Honestly, I think he's just kind of a free spirit, and he's I just want to try something new. But I guess at the time you had to do what you had to do to make a living.
No kidding.
So, yeah, he purchased the newspaper out, and again, his sons were there to help. At this point, Walt was only 9 or 10 years old, but he was actually making money from this, so it was his first official job.
Wow.
Walt didn't have a lot of time for school, though, so he didn't have a lot of time to, be a normal kid that would, go to school and spend time on his studies, so he kind of struggled in school a bit, but he was always great in art and reading. So he was always a really fluent reader. He read with expression a lot, and, of course, he loved drawing. From a very early age, he loved being able to draw. So they ended up moving to a bigger house in Kansas City, just because they felt like they needed more space. When they moved to that house, Walt actually met a boy named Walt Pfeiffer, so they had the same name.
Wow.
And those two would hang out like every weekend. They'd go to shows at the cinema, so they saw a lot of like silent films, but it was like them acting out the silent films.
So they were pretty much just
people doing things quietly in a funny manner.
Oh, it's still comedy. It's kind of like the Three Stooges.
Exactly,
almost.
Yeah. And Walt pretty much spent the whole time watching them, just studying their lines and like the way that they were acting, and like was just so fascinated by all of the creativity behind it. So it was hard for him to focus on like the actual storyline because he was just like, wow, it's cool how they did this and this, and he actually like started memorizing their lines a lot of the time if they saw the show more than once. So at this point, Walt was kind of inspired and developed a love for amusement parks. So at this point, he's like hanging out with Walt Pfeiffer. It's crazy they have the same name. And so they went to an amusement park called Electric Park, and this really like grabbed his attention. It had 10,000 electric lights that illuminated over a roller coaster. So, you know, as a kid, you're like, whoa! And then you see roller coaster, you're like, whoa! They also had a dime museum, a penny museum, a swimming pool, and a light show. So it was a different amusement park than we kind of see nowadays. Okay. Because it was like a lot of things to do that were kind of different. But he would just go to amusement parks, and he was just fascinated by like how they worked. So you can kind of see, like, he's already a very creative and artistic boy at this age, and like already thinking of like building an amusement park at that age. Like, that's
he just didn't know the foundation of how he would pursue it.
Right. He was just like, whoa, these are super cool. And so that kind of started that part of it. And of course, like I mentioned, he excelled in art class. He would draw flowers with human hands and faces, which sounds absolutely terrifying. Can you imagine that? Like a flower with like a human face and hands.
How detailed, though?
I know.
Go into these things?
I assume pretty detailed.
Oh, God.
So he was drawing those in art class. One day, I don't know what he was doing, but he stepped on a nail, and so he was out of school for a little bit.
Because he stepped on a nail?
Yep. Must have been pretty intense.
I guess.
So he spent 2 weeks in bed healing from it. So he must have like broke his foot or something.
How do you break your foot stepping on a nail?
I don't know. I was kind of like...
It's just you elevate your foot for a couple days, put on a boot, and go.
He was probably using it as an excuse. Like,
Did they even have boots then?
No, probably not. So
they had to have crutches.
All I know is he stepped on a nail and then spent 2 weeks in bed.
Okay, that's a little extra.
Yeah, I agree. But he spent most of that time on bed rest for stepping on a nail. He spent most of that time drawing cartoons and drawing the flowers, and like he would create his own weird looking cartoons.
And it's funny because cartoons weren't a thing because television wasn't.
Right. So like cartoons were like first getting invented a little bit, like the idea of like an animated
I think it was
project
mostly in newspapers where you would have drawings like that.
Right.
But
they weren't really on TV
or
anything like that. So Elias once again got bored or something and sold the newspaper route.
What are you doing now?
It's a completely different thing.
Oh, no.
So in 1917, he bought a partnership in the Ozell Jelly Factory in Chicago. Now they're back in Chicago.
What is this dude's deal? Like,
I don't know. He has a lot of interests, and for some reason, he's really fascinated by the jelly factories.
They're like nothing. A farmer, a freaking contractor,
right? A newspaper route and a jelly factory.
That's so weird.
So they bought the partnership with the Ozell Jelly Factory. Again, this is in Chicago, so they're moving back to Chicago. Flora, Ruth, and Walt, all of them, you know, the older siblings are gone. Mm-hmm. Roy was now in the U.S. Navy. So, going to their life now in Chicago, Walt knew he wanted to do something with art. So he actually became an artist for his high school paper. So now he's in high school, and he's like designing all of the newspaper like covers and everything, and sketching what he needs to for that. So that was kind of his new inspiration. And everyone always said he had natural artistic talent. Sometimes they'd be like, what are you drawing? What kind of thing is this? What concept are you thinking of? But they knew, like, he was talented. So although they didn't understand, like, his art, they knew that he knew what he was doing.
Well, that's how most artists are.
Right.
Look at Van Gogh. Like,
yeah.
He had interesting... I really like his paintings, though.
Yeah, they're very cool. Anyway, so to pay for... He was taking art classes at Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. So he was doing that at night after school.
Dang.
But in order to pay for it, because he had to pay for it by himself, he would wash the jelly jars at the factory. So that was like his other job.
It's like the weirdest jobs that a person could do. But
it's very interesting.
That was the time.
Yeah.
Now you have robots to clean them.
Yeah, right.
Dishwasher.
But back in the day, you didn't. So you had to do it yourself. And at this point, he's like inspired by Roy, and he appreciates Roy. He's always looked up to him. They've always been close, and he's like, maybe I should join the military. So he wanted to join his brother, who's fighting in World War I. He tried to join the army, but he was too young. He was only 16. You had to be 17.
If there was an actual war going on, they would have just taken it.
I know. But he ended up actually looking into the Red Cross Ambulance Corps.
Okay.
And he joined that. He lied about his birth year with this, because eventually he was like, I'm tired of being rejected. So his mom actually like signed a document and pretended that he was born a year earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? That was a very common thing.
Yeah. So they wrote 1900 instead of 1901. And
wow, 1 year.
I know, right? So his job with the Red Cross Ambulance Corps, which I didn't even know, like, he'd be involved in that. 'Cause, like, I didn't know that part about Walt, but it makes sense with the time period. And being a young kid during that time, like, yeah.
You wanted to help your country.
Right. But his main job was he helped with post-war operations in France. He made deliveries, he drove ambulances, or even drove soldiers around, like, wherever they needed to go. So that was his main jobs.
Yeah.
That were his main jobs. So that was what he was doing. At this time, he is kind of finding his own independence as a teenager. So he takes up smoking. And he was known for smoking until the day he died. Okay. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell you how he died, but you can kind of make a prediction.
But the thing is that it's very common.
Exactly.
Up until the 90s.
As of now, they didn't see it as an issue.
No.
They didn't know there was anything wrong with it.
No.
So...
the social norm to do so.
There weren't any health concerns with it.
No.
So he took up smoking, and again, he was addicted forever after that. But it started here at the age of 16. He begins to, while he's gone in France, he sends drawings to magazines, just in different places, wherever he can find, and all of them get rejected.
Oh, no.
Yep. So that in September of 1919, Walt returns home. And goes back to Kansas City to, again, focus on becoming an artist. So, his parents are kind of going back and forth. Chicago, Kansas City. They just really like those two
so now they're
places.
back in Missouri?
Yes.
Why?
Who knows what Elias is doing now?
What are you doing?
But they are living in one house with his parents, all of his brothers, and one of his brother's 5 kids. What? In one house.
Oh my god.
I don't know how many people that is, because I don't feel like doing the math, but that's a lot of people in one house.
5 additional children.
Right. And he became really close to, like, his niece and nephews, of course. But they were all just super tight, always a close family. At this point, he got a job as a commercial artist at the Pressman Rubin Studio in Kansas City. And this is where he met and became friends with a fellow artist who really pops up in his life a lot. His name was Ub Iwerks. Ub. I thought his last name was Twerks.
Ha!
Because the I on my screen looked like a T. So at first I wrote Ub Twerks. And then I was like, that's an I. So, anyway. They, like, were best friends forever. But they were both laid off in January of 1920 from this company, the Commercial Artist Company, basically, because he was an artist as well. So they actually formed their own company. And this was called Iwerks Disney Commercial Artists.
Oh, wow.
So they basically just put their 2 last names together and
Very
created
creative.
a company. I know, right? Wow. Must have taken them hours to think of. But it's not very successful. It doesn't last very long. They weren't making any money. So they also didn't have any clients. So you can't really have a business.
No.
So it only lasted a month.
Aww.
Yeah. But the duo stuck together. They were like, no matter what, bro, we're bros, and we're going to stick together.
We're bros. He said it just like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So the duo got a job at the Kansas City Film Ad Company, and they were both working as cartoonists. So they would basically, at the time, they'd have movies in movie theaters, and they'd have commercials before the movies. So this is where they'd have the animated films.
Oh, so it was like those dancing, like, fountain drinks with the popcorn doing, like, those dances.
Yeah. It was very, like, sharp movements. Like, you could tell that somebody sketched it out and then, like, moved them. So they didn't look very smooth, but this was the first look at animation. Mm-hmm. And so they would actually, their job was to sketch out cartoons to put in these films, to put right before the films. Cool. Yeah. So again, this was really when that started becoming popular, and these commercials would be long before the movie. Some people would go to the movies just to see the commercials. What? Because it was such a new concept. And they were like, what cartoons are they going to have now? So it was exciting.
Now we have Nuvi with...
Right, now we have movies before a movie.
Oh, God, what's her name? Maria
Menounos.
We worked at a movie theater for quite a bit, and when we would have to clean theaters...
You just hear
the Nuvi.
First look.
And it would always be Maria Menounos, and we would hear it at least 15 times a shift. So you would start to just know
I'm still triggered when I see her come up when I'm at the movies. I get so triggered. I'm like, we gotta clean the movie theater. We're almost out of time.
Every time I'd see it, it'd be like, I would always look at her and be like, oh, she got a new haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single time. I'd be like, oh, what is she wearing now?
Yeah, and now we literally just put commercials of movies before the actual movie. But that's been going on for a while. But anyway.
But then you freaking memorize those, too.
Yeah. But at this time, it was just little cartoons that literally had nothing to do with the movie. And a lot of them were just commercials.
Yeah.
Okay, so the duo, as they're being cartoonists, they also decided to make puppets. So their idea was if they could experiment with a puppet and kind of see how a puppet could move, then they could kind of figure out how a cartoon would move. So they're basically creating their own, like, animation style by using puppets as, like, the base of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So Walt borrowed a camera and basically experimented with stop-action animations. So he would shoot footage of his animal drawings that he had from the farm, or like different drawings he might have done, and he would just obviously do like the stop action. So he would show like one clip of it and then like flip the page and it'd be moving a little bit. Okay. So he was experimenting with that, and he, again, like with the puppets, he used a lot of different techniques until it actually looked like they were moving. So he didn't want it to look like sharp and like you could tell that he was flipping a page, but he wanted it to look more smooth, like they were actually moving. So he was experimenting until he could get to that point, because he knew nobody has been able to do that yet. So the cartoons at the time, I kind of talked about them a little bit, but they were silent. So they didn't have any speaking at all.
Did they put music over them?
It would be music, but it would just be like a silent film, but it would just be a silent cartoon. So it'd be like a little girl running to her house, and then there might be like a little laugh track, or like she might fall and there would be a laugh track and she would start crying. So like everything was just shown through the silence, and then like the way that the music would go, or like audience interaction, basically. So they were all silent at the time, and basically Walt looked at that and was like, what if they weren't silent? But he kind of didn't hit that idea until a little bit later. But he was kind of thinking, like, what if we actually made them talk? So that was just an idea he had. He created his own cartoons, and he called them laughograms.
Laughogram.
Yes, again, creative name. But he basically recruited a group of people to start Laughograms Company. And again, he had that idea in mind of, what if we can make them laugh by them actually talking, or like them actually making noises? So he basically took modernized fairy tales. So he would kind of think of the fairy tales his mom would read to him back in the day, or he'd look at old fairy tales, and he made them into a story that went with the times that they were in. For example, they had a story, like the Puss in Boots story.
Yeah.
They made it more modernized by having Puss... Is that his name?
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt like it wasn't.
I had to think.
They had him go to the movie theater. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of their way of, like, taking an old fairy tale, but making it relatable. And, like, he was now in their time period.
Oh, my God.
That was his idea.
He was just walking up to the theater with his little boots
Literally,
on.
I saw it. Yeah, exactly how it is.
Oh
he, like,
God.
grabs popcorn. Yeah. It's still, like, you can still find it today, but that's what he did. So he would focus on, like, bringing those old fairy tales and bringing them back to life.
Wow.
Roy, at this time, gets sick. He gets tuberculosis.
Oh, legit.
So, doesn't die, but, you know.
That's rough.
Yeah. And then we have Herbert, his other brother, who decided to move away from the home because of joining the Postal Service.
Is he the one with the 5 kids?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a lot of kids.
So, Herbert moves, and then Roy moves because he's sick.
Yeah.
So, he wants to go somewhere else.
Well, he probably wants to keep it away from his family.
Exactly, that too. He doesn't want his family to get sick. So both of the brothers leave, and then Elias and Flora are like, we might as well join them because they both go to the same area. I don't know specifically. Oh, they moved to Portland. So they moved to Portland and they joined them.
Dang, that's far.
Yeah, so pretty far, and obviously his little sister went as well because
Yeah.
she's still like a teenager at this point, early teens. So she moved with them. Walt said goodbye and he stayed there.
Dang.
He was kind of upset with his family for leaving him because he was like,
kidding.
I have something going on here. Like, I'm creating these laugh-o-grams. I have a company getting started, and you want me to leave with you? So he was like, no, I'm staying here. So he was the only one who stayed there with his family. You guys may notice his family moves around a lot. They get bored of things.
No way. I wonder what Elias did now.
Right? So we'll see him again. Don't worry.
God.
But they are now in Portland, and he stayed there. In 1922, he quit the ad company and finally had official Laugh-O-Grams company. So this was the time where Laugh-O-Grams actually were official. And the company's name, you ready?
Yeah.
Laugh-O-Gram Films.
No way! Oh my God.
At this point, he's only 20 years old. So
Dang.
to have his own, like, startup company like that.
Well, just what he's been doing.
Yeah. And he was motivated from, like, a very young age. So, like, he's always been, like, self-motivated and, like, able to kind of start things on his own, which is really impressive. And that's why, of course, he became an entrepreneur, is because he, like, had that mindset.
Dude, he was a good one.
Yeah. He's incredible. So, basically, there's a company that bought it called Pictorial Films. And they had them making their Laugh-O-Grams. So Walt and his group of men that were working with him, there were like 5 of them, I think. But the film company told them that they would make $11,000 as a month at first, which was a lot.
That's
But
way.
they only gave them $100.
What?
And then they were like, don't worry, you'll get it as the year goes.
Oh, that's a scam.
And then they went out of business.
Of course they did.
So no, they did not make their $11,000. So at this point, Walt is kind of furious. He's like, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, no
So
kidding.
he has his Laugh-O-Grams company, but he's done with Pictorial Films. Mm-hmm. And he decides, where would I have a lot of opportunity? Can you guess where he went?
Portland.
L.A.
No what? Yeah, well...
He now is like, I should go to L.A., you know, where things are actually happening over there. And Roy is actually living there. So Roy moved from Portland to L.A.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they actually decided, hey, let's work together. We're brothers. Yay.
Yay.
I just like making their interactions sound like very unrealistic. But anyway, how they worked together was Walt was the main director. He wrote stories and he would draw the animations. Roy was more into the business side of things. So he was like their accountant and he was their cameraman. He had a way with the camera.
Huh.
So that's how they worked together. And they created a little something called Alice's Wonderland. Okay.
Hey.
This was their big idea. They came up with this together, and it honestly sparked a whole new part of film where they had the idea of bringing live action into cartoons. Because up to this point, they had cartoons brought into live action. So, like, they had, like, cartoons being put into, like, real people's families. They'd have, like, a cartoon dog or something.
Huh.
But they never thought of doing all cartoons and then adding live action into it.
Oh.
So Alice's Wonderland was the first film to ever do that. And so they had one actress, one little girl, who was the live person.
I have seen photographs of this.
And then all the other characters were cartoons.
Yeah.
And she was in a cartoon land.
I remember seeing photos of that. Alice for the win.
Right?
That is one of my favorite classic Disney films is Alice in Wonderland, 1953.
Yeah. So this idea, and they showed Alice's Wonderland a little bit. It wasn't like super big at the time, but they kind of showed how he came up with this new idea, and then other people started doing it. They created a company together as brothers called Disney Bros.
No way. Really? Bros?
Disney Bros.
What?
They probably just meant it to be like Disney Brothers, but
what?
It was literally spelled out like Bros.
Ahead of their time.
Right? Disney Bros Studios. And they basically worked in a small store. They were kind of able to start everything up there. At this point, they're looking for more people to work with them, so they ask Ube Iwerks, again, to join them. And they kind of touch back into Alice's Wonderland and and they rename it and kind of revamp it a little bit, and it's now called Alice in Cartoonland. So that's a new title for it. Yeah. And this hits theaters in June 1924. So now their actual idea is in the movie theaters, and people are starting to see it.
I need to correct myself.
Why?
I knew I was wrong the moment it came out of my mouth. Alice in Wonderland came out in 1951.
What did you say?
1953.
Oh.
Why was I thinking 53?
2 years later.
I knew it was 1951. I hate myself.
Okay, chill, it's fine.
Sorry.
Okay, in 1925, Walt's life turned upside down.
Ooh.
He decided to hire an ink artist, so he wouldn't have to do all the drawings.
Yeah.
Named Lillian Bounds. And they began dating.
Oh, no.
What do you mean, oh, no?
Well, you said his life turns upside down.
For the good.
Oh. Well, then you said when you say upside down, that doesn't mean, it normally means something bad.
That's so true. And I also went, named Lillian Bounds. Like, I made it sound like she was like the devil.
Yeah, I thought she was.
Okay, sorry, guys. She's a good human.
Okay.
And his life was turned for the good.
There you go.
I should have said turned front side up or something. I don't know.
No.
All right, his life was changed. They began dating and instantly fell in love, and they got married in her home state, Idaho. That's where her whole family was from. That's where she grew up. So they got married on July 13th, 1925. Disney is 24 years old.
Dang.
Lillian is 26 years old.
Ooh,
so pretty close
cougar.
in age. Yeah. A couple years older. That's actually a pretty late age to get married back then.
Yeah, no kidding. It was normally getting married at 19.
Exactly, yeah, so I was kind of shocked by that. So they are married now. He's living with his wife. Okay, so he's still working on his cartoon companies and everything. He meets a New York cartoon distributor that signed a contract for the Alice series. Mm-hmm. And her name was Margaret Winkler. She married a man named Charles Mintz. When she married Charles Mintz, he basically helped her with the company. So not only the company now owned the Alice series, and they basically had all rights to it, even though it was Walt's idea. So Walt basically helped them with everything, but they were the name behind it.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Charles Mintz was not a fan of the Alice series. He hated it.
Ooh.
So it ended. Just like that. Mm-hmm. And again, it could because they owned it.
Oh my god.
Mintz basically said, I want a fully animated movie. So, he basically was inspired by a different cartoon. I forget what it's called, but it was like a animal with real human qualities. And so, together, Walt and, Charles, kind of created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Which was their first, yeah. And this was distributed by Universal, which we know is a very big company.
It was around then. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should do one on that. I did not.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Was around that long.
Yeah. So Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is now in the theaters, and it is, again, distributed by Universal. Huge company, so it makes it pretty big.
You know what's really funny?
Huh.
They were teaming with Universal, and now Universal and Disney are like...
Are opposite.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Mic drop!
Mic drop.
The mic just went...
But it's funny, because when you think... DreamWorks is tied with Universal, isn't it?
I thought DreamWorks was its own thing.
I know, but I thought, like, it correlates... Yeah, it correlates with...
Does it?
Universal Studios. Because the Shrek ride is there.
Yep.
So it's funny how their animated series is, like, kind of against Disney's.
And they're very different, too.
Oh,
like, in their style.
I love Universal or DreamWorks.
I love both of them. Like, Pixar, obviously, is owned by Disney, but, like, that style of animation is my favorite, but...
Really?
I do respect the, I love, like, Pixar animations.
Really?
They're so crisp.
Oh, I like the classic Disney look.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I like the draw
style. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
But...
I don't know. I just like those.
If I had to choose between, like, Universal or DreamWorks and Disney, it's gonna be Disney.
Well, yeah, but I also love Spirit.
I didn't like that movie as a kid because it was too quiet.
Spirit?
Yeah.
He was a horse. He can't talk.
I know. That's why I hated it. I was like, why are they not talking?
Did you want a talking horse?
Yeah. I remember just being in the movie theater so bored. Like, and I know, I respect it now. Like, I love it now. It's a great movie. But, like, I just remember being a kid and being like, what's the point of this?
He's a horse. I love horses.
I was not a horse girl.
I was, though.
My mom was, and she was, like, crying. And I'm like...
My first Build-A-Bear that I actually got at Disneyland was a horse.
Oh, really?
Her name was Hershey. She had...
Oh, I remember Hershey.
She had pink sandals with a jean skirt and a little sassy top.
How do we get from Oswald the Rabbit to Build-A-Bear?
That's a really good question. It's Disneyland related, and I heard that they took the Build-A-Bear out, so I'm very disappointed about that.
Of Disney?
At Disneyland.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. There's a lot that they don't have when I went as a kid. Unfortunate. We'll get to that.
Anyway, in February 1928, Oswald made it so big that now it was up for renew, so they wanted to make another Oswald film. Mintz basically took over to produce and got rid of Disney. So he's like, you know what? This is my idea. I'm good at doing this Oswald thing. You go do your own thing. Bye.
I would have taken my glove and slapped him.
Yeah.
Good lord.
So it was basically stolen, but again, he owned the rights to the character.
Oh.
So the character trademark was owned by Mintz, even though the idea of Oswald was Disney.
Freaking legal
it's a
stuff.
Tough situation, you know, like a lot of copyright issues there, but that's what happened. So Walt takes a train back, and he's deciding, all right, I have to do something else. He's sitting there in the train with Lillian, and he looks at her and goes, what if I make a new character and it's a mouse? And then she's like, yeah, like Chuck E. Cheese. No, I'm just kidding. But okay.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Anyways, he's like, yeah, what if I make a mouse? And she goes, oh, that'd be fun. Like, what do you think of the name Mortimer Mouse? And Lillian looks at him and goes, that's stupid. What about Mickey Mouse?
Aww.
She came up with the name. Isn't that amazing?
I always thought Steamboat Willie was first himself.
Oh, no, Steamboat Willie was after.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was the same year.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, they basically, in the train ride back home, is when Mickey Mouse was created. So the name was created.
Oh,
and he started kind of thinking of different ways he could use Mickey Mouse.
Oh.
Now, Walt was like, I'm not letting it get stolen again.
Ooh.
So he copyrighted Mickey Mouse right away. But he couldn't sell cartoons without a distributor. So it would have just been his own thing. He wouldn't have been able to actually like get it out anywhere. So now in 1928, they do have the idea of sound in cartoons. So it took that long for like sound to actually be incorporated.
Dang.
So now it's in film technology. But Disney is still like, I want to do it better than anybody else has. So he created the idea of voicing Mickey.
He did it?
Yes. He had a very specific tone of voice for Mickey. and he believed that nobody else could do it. Like, he had such a specific request for how, like, it needs to sound like a mouse, but it needs to be bold. And you need to understand.
I want to hear your impression.
I can do it, but okay.
I want to hear it.
Why?
Because it's funny. I'll do it too.
Okay. Hi everyone, it's Mickey Mouse. No wait, he doesn't laugh. Does Goofy laugh? He laughs.
No, yeah, he laughs like that.
Yeah.
Mickey
Mouse Clubhouse.
Yeah, because Goofy is like, whoa.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear yours.
Hi everybody.
That's pretty good. But yeah, like he had people audition to do the voice, and he felt like nobody else could do it.
So he was like, everyone,
move
aside.
Yeah,
I'm the true one.
Exactly. He's like, I'm gonna voice Mickey, and there's nothing y'all can say about it. And then he was like, okay, so we have Mickey talking, but what's happening in the background? So he had a team of people create like sound effects, and then overlapped their effects together.
Oh yeah, because they like bang on like one of those like metal boards, and it goes like.
Which they still do that a lot in films nowadays. I've seen a lot of movies that they've used like popcorn as a way to make it sound like there's like something big coming, like rain, basically. Yeah. They just like shake a thing of popcorn. So it's the same kind of concept. But yeah, they added all of those sound effects. And then on November 18th, 1928, we had Steamboat Willie. This was the first cartoon with sound.
Oh yeah,
so full sound. Yep. So yeah, and it has that like iconic scene that they have in the beginning of Disney movies.
I know, I love it. I'm so glad that they decided to add that.
Yeah.
Because it is such an iconic historical character.
Yeah,
for Disney.
I love that they still keep it in there.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. This received beautiful reviews, like amazing reviews, and everyone fell in love with Mickey Mouse. They were like, oh, this character, he's so great.
Tim, I bet loved him.
Yeah, yeah. And so, again, Walt continued to use his own voice. And people actually believed that Mickey Mouse was the foreshadow of Walt. Like, he created the character based on himself. Because he wanted everything very specific about his character and, like, his motivations, that a lot of people think that he was kind of creating him as an animal character.
Baby, too, yeah. He brought it from the ground up with the assistance of his wife. Me.
Exactly. In 1929, the Skeleton Dance was created. And he created a lot of cartoons, like The Three Little Pigs. And this was also when he created Donald Duck, Goofy, and Pluto. So he kind of had this idea of, like, really short animated films in the beginning of movies, or sometimes the end of movies.
Yeah.
So people would have to, like, wait until the end. So a lot of kids would just be, like, anticipating it the whole movie.
AKA Marvel movies now.
Yeah. Have you ever seen The Skeleton Dance?
Is it that spooky, scary skeleton?
I don't remember if there's a song with it, but like they're like dancing in the graveyard.
I have seen it. I don't think that's the right song. I just remember that video of that dude wearing the pumpkin head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's different, but yeah. So yeah.
I've seen the skeletons. Yeah. I just every time I think of that, I don't know why I think of that song.
I love it. So yeah, he's creating a lot of new characters. Now, with his family life, they are deciding they want a family. Aww. Lillian suffered through 2 miscarriages, like one after the other, pretty quick. So it didn't really work out, but they're still trying, like consistently. Back to his career. In 1931, we had Technicolor. So color's starting to be kind of more introduced and everything.
Yeah.
And Disney basically had wanted to hold the rights to Technicolor for 2 years. He filmed a cartoon titled Flowers and Trees in Technicolor. And this was like one of the first animated films that had actual color through it. Wow. So it would start in black and white and then boom, color. And it's literally just trees that have human faces. And they like talk to each other. Again, kind of terrifying. And then like other parts of nature would talk or have a human face.
Yeah.
He won an Oscar for this, for the best cartoon. And it was the first ever Oscar given to a cartoon.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Dang, he's legit.
I know. He's like I honestly didn't realize he's done so many like things
that weren't strictly Disney.
Exactly. He's just creative. He's willing to try it all. Mm-hmm. On December 18th, 1933, Diane Marie Disney was born, so they finally had a little girl. Now, I kind of am going back and forth with his family life and his career because they're both, like, huge parts of him.
Yeah.
But he was known to treat his family differently than his coworkers, which makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
He's a businessman, you know. But, of course, he's loving with his family. He's always wanting to go on vacations, and he's very funny and, like, just a really good dad. Mm-hmm. But at work, he's very stern, and he never complimented his team. Like, he refused to. His way of complimenting would be like, I hear you did a great job on this film. So he would never be like, you did a great job. He'd be like, I hear that you did this, or I heard you did this.
I guess, like, his mindset is probably thinking, well, if I'm being too nice, then they're going to slack off on their work. Yeah. And it's not going to be what I envision.
Right. But people would, like, try so hard to, like, get some type of praise from him. Because he never, like, thanked them for their job or, like, never praised them. But, like, you know, deep down, obviously, he appreciated it. But he just had a roundabout way of complimenting people.
I mean, like, it's good to, like, compliment your team.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I get it not doing it all the time, just, like, little things that they do. But if they create something big and it gets a big praise out of it, to be like, hey, you did a good job on that. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, it's different then, too. Mm-hmm. It's just ideals were different.
Yeah. It definitely. Like, and it's that businessman mentality, too. Yeah. Like, it's hard for them to get into the fields. They don't want to. You know, they're like, we got to get this stuff done. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be emotional. We're not going to sit around and kumbaya. Like,
well, he's striving to get his vision completed. Right. And with like, technology just soaring.
He's not going to risk wasting time.
No, you can't because someone else, like Mintz, is going to pick it up.
Exactly.
From behind. And he didn't. I feel like he didn't want to be in that situation again, and he was willing to do anything, and if not complimenting his team, so be it.
Exactly. Who cares? The Snow White story was around, and somebody made, like, a really short version of Snow White. Mm-hmm. He looked at that and said, I'm going to make a longer version of that, so that kind of inspired Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, he focused a lot on the details, like, when the dwarfs slurp the soup. Yeah. Like, he was very consistent and, like, that needs to happen. Because all of the dwarfs slurp the soup in a different way. Mm-hmm. And, like Dopey, you can see it's kind of more messy. Yeah. So, like, he was so focused on, like, these are the details of each character and this is how it needs to be.
I think he really gets into, like, the mind of all of them.
Yeah.
To just completely... And that's what a lot of people end up doing is that when they are, like, writers or artists that they really want to dive in themselves to whatever that they're creating, and you can see that in his work.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now they had another miscarriage, so they're still trying for another kid. So at this point she's kind of just like, why don't we pursue adoption? And so they actually ended up adopting a kid pretty quickly, named Sharon May Disney. She was born on December 21st, 1936. Now, you will see, or she wasn't born, that's when they adopted her, but, like, December is such a big month for them. Like, his birthday, his daughter's birthdays, like, dang. It's just a crazy month. But anyway, so that was all happening. He now has a new daughter while he's in the process of making Snow White. So, a lot of people were basically telling him, don't do Snow White. Nobody's going to sit through a long animated film.
Ooh.
Yeah, so they're like, nobody's going to sit through that. Are you joking? Why would you do that? But on December 21st, 1937, Snow White premiered, and it was a sensation. Yeah. Despite the Great Depression that was happening, it earned $416 million.
That's so much money.
Again, during the Great Depression. Yeah. Like, people needed that. They needed something they could enjoy. Uplifting. Yeah. So, his whole family... They're like, hey, how's it going, Walt? Can we move there? They're now living in LA.
Freaking 15 family members in one giant house or small house.
Yeah. Like, they all move into a house together again.
Oh my God.
But this time it doesn't go so well because they have like a gas leak in their house and it kills his mom.
Oh God.
So Flora dies.
Oh no.
In 1938. Sad, I know. So they're coming to Walt and they're saying, can you make another Snow White? Please, we want another Snow White. It was so good. And he's basically like, no, I have other ideas.
Why would I make a sequel?
Exactly. But that's what they wanted. They wanted Snow White to be like a character that would come back. Yeah.
Okay.
And this would come, we're going to talk about it later, but Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi are going to come up next. So at this point, he's kind of coming up with those ideas a little bit more. Now, he works on Pinocchio in 1940, and that was the quick kind of turnaround from Snow White. But he's like, I'm not going to make another Snow White, but I have another great idea. And Pinocchio was formed.
Dude, Pinocchio is so long.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like, and it has like some adult humor too.
It does.
But you have to think, though, that he's a grown-ass man making kids movies, but he wasn't, I don't think he was strictly doing it just for kids. He was just creating this new form of film.
He wanted the whole family to enjoy it.
Exactly.
Just like Disneyland. Like, he wanted everyone to be involved.
Exactly. And like a lot of the humor and just like the context of Pinocchio, if you really watch it, y'all gotta go watch it. It has some like adult
it does.
dialogue and adult situations that you're just like,
pretty deep.
This poor kid.
Yeah. So after Pinocchio, he made Fantasia in 1940, so same year. Yeah. Now, this was an expensive movie. It was over $2 million because you gotta think the music, he wanted it to feel like you were sitting in an orchestra hall. Like, he wanted the music to just shoot out at you. But also the colors in Fantasia cost a lot of money. Because, again, color's not so easy to access. So that costs a lot. So, again, it was over $2 million to make this one film, which is a lot back then.
Much money.
Now, unfortunately, Pinocchio and Fantasia were not as successful as Snow White because World War II was starting.
Right.
And this cut off 40% of revenues from other countries. So it was just, like, Snow White was out into every country, like, it was huge. Yeah. But these two just couldn't make it because, you know, they got other stuff going on.
Well, yeah, because the war didn't hit the U.S. yet, but it did hit Europe really hard, and that's a large percentage if they're doing it worldwide.
Yeah.
Dang.
But then he worked on Dumbo, and he kind of expected it not to be, like, a huge success.
Yeah.
But he produced that and premiered it in 1941.
That one's sad, too.
It is. Yeah. Well, that one really shows its time. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
And then he's creating Bambi. In order to create Bambi the best he could, they had real animals, and they studied how the real animals looked and how they acted. So he would, like, look at a deer and kind of see its natural reactions and took that to create the animations, which I thought is really interesting. They had a huge discussion about how the mother should die because they were gonna actually show her dead, bleeding out. That was the original idea, but Walt was like, "Why would we do that? That's horrible." Yeah. So they just decided to bring in where he's like, "Mom, she." I still don't know. I think he's a boy.
Yeah, I think Bambi's a boy.
Yeah. Mom, where are you? Like, and they didn't show her. That gets me
every time. I have goosebumps right now just because it's so sad. Watching that scene, I'm like, I can't.
It's horrible.
I can't. It's so sad. It's like this poor little boy.
Yeah.
No longer has a mom. They always kill the mom.
Yeah. So Bambi was premiered in 1942. So all of these happened in the same like couple of years, which was crazy that he made them so fast. Now the movies were obviously not going well because of World War II, and just like lack of funds. Yeah. But the studio was now in debt, and the movie studios began unionizing, basically. So the Disney workers wanted to unionize, and his workers demanded better pay and working conditions. They felt like he kind of forced them to work hard and let's make another one, let's keep going, come on. But they were they wanted to be treated better, basically. So Disney was upset by this, and he believed his company had been infiltrated by communists. It's like, you all are a bunch of communists, come on!
Wow.
Just because of their difference in political views, and
he
was more
Well, labor laws were becoming really big during this time, just because people were tired of not getting better pay or working conditions.
Right, yeah, and whatever. Yeah, I mean, that was huge back then. Yeah, definitely. So after numerous heated meetings, they had strikes, they had negotiations, Disney became unionized. And this left Walt just feeling disillusioned, discouraged, betrayed. Like, he just was not for this idea.
Well, because he's just so, gung-ho about, his ideas and what he wants done that he's forgetting about his team that actually helped make this happen.
Yep.
And I think it's just, for him, he was just thinking so much, just like a single lane, and not thinking about all the other lanes with all the important people that help make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's a downfall.
Definitely. Right after that happened, Elias, his father, died from a disease. I forget which one. He died of a sickness. So yes, rest in peace. You worked hard, did all your jobs. Congratulations. And then Pearl Harbor. The U.S. has now joined the war. And the U.S. government actually paid Walt to produce training films for soldiers. What? So they would use his popular characters and be like, don't forget to do this! And like show
Mickey
Pluto
Mouse.
like doing funny things, or like Mickey Mouse, like literally gave that to soldiers as a training video. So that's what he was getting paid for, was making these animated training videos for the war.
Mickey Mouse in a like uniform being like, oh, go kill the Nazis!
Yeah. Don't get blown up!
Oh my god.
I gotta find these videos.
Oh my god.
And then a lot of people were kind of like, why would you let him do that? Because they thought he was very naive with politics. He didn't really take it seriously, a lot of people thought.
No kidding, he's making kids movies.
Right, and then people were like, he's racist, and like all these rumors started to spread about him. And a lot of, everyone who knew him said he was very even-minded, and like was accepting of all people. Like he was the last person to show a preference in a race, or like he was the last person to show any prejudice, and a lot of people felt that way about him, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, because when people talk about Walt Disney, one of the main things that I hear about when having that conversation is that he was very anti-Jew.
Yep.
That he was racist.
And it's because he was kind of like, why are we in the war? Like, let's move on. Like, he just wasn't very, like, involved in it.
And I think that's a problem, especially during that time, because so many people, like, you had 16, 17-year-olds going into the war, like, lying about their age to fight in the war, and he's just like, hey, I don't really care about it.
And with such a big name, like, that's going to matter. That's going to affect him.
It's going to give you hate even then. Like, it's bad now of people speaking their mind like that. Then,
right,
it was probably just a whole new level.
Yeah. So many people were upset with him, but yeah, people who knew him were like, he just honestly doesn't want to be involved in that stuff. Like, he's just very even-minded and wants to spend his time thinking about other things.
He's making anti-Nazi Mickey Mouse videos.
Okay, so the war's over. Yay! Okay. He's like, hey, let's make live action films. So he created Song of the South, which was made in 1946. It is 30% animation and 70% live action. So he wanted to focus more on like the live action and like directing those basically. We know Zippity Doo Doo, Zippity Doo. It was the best song of 1946.
Wow.
Which I think is really fun. Best movie song, sorry, not song. Couldn't have been that good, but anyway, so that was something he was working on. And then in 1947, he created a documentary about seals, titled Seal Island.
Kind of like his dad with weird jobs.
Exactly, and he won an Academy Award for Best Documentary. So he's creating these things. He's like, what about this? And they're like, yeah, here's an award. Like, everything he's making is just incredible.
Well, he got one for Snow White.
Yeah.
And didn't they give him like the little mini ones for Seven Dwarfs?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they gave him the little dwarfs.
That's so cute.
Of
course, they wouldn't do that now because.
So after the war, all of the money that they were making with like the Disney movies from the UK, like all of that money had to stay there, and they weren't getting any of it. So they were like, why don't we create a movie there? And they created Treasure Island, which is fully live action. So the purpose of creating that was so they could get some of that money. Yeah. Wow. Now this is just a fun fact, but people called him Mr. Disney and he hated it. He was like, my name's Walt. So you couldn't call him Mr. Disney, which I think is funny because he's a businessman. And he's like, don't call me that.
Call me Mr. Walt.
Yeah, just Walt. Like, he was on a first name basis with everyone. Like,
really?
Yeah.
At least he had that form of respect for his team. Be like,
Yeah.
Mr. Disney is my dad.
Exactly, like, Mr. Disney. Like, he wasn't like, you better call me that. He was very humble. Like, very humble throughout his whole career. So, he is now in a new family house. That sounded weird. He has a family. Yeah, okay. And he gets this crazy idea of creating a railroad track in his backyard.
What?
So, they laid a railroad track by their family house. And he actually asked somebody to build a mini train.
Huh.
People were, like, coming to their house. Like, grown adults were sitting in the trains going around and around. Like, I saw videos of grown-ass adults sitting in the train and just, like, with a smile on their face. Like,
oh, my God.
That's how bored they were. But anyway, so people are, like, coming over, riding the train, okay? And this was a treasured experience, as they said. It was so fun riding a train around and around. But nobody thought of, like, building their own train. So it's kind of cool. He was doing that. He was really focused on his family. And while he was so famous and, like, his name was so big, his taste was still very plain and simple. He wore the same clothes he's had for years. He would bring canned foods to, like, big dinners. What? And eat that instead. Like, he was just, he didn't want, like, the fame or, like, anything like that to affect him.
I feel like that's just being a picky eater.
I know. Like, he wants to eat beans instead of, like, steak. Okay.
Steak and beans.
But he did. Like, he was known for just, like, always staying humble and always just being, like, wearing the same clothes, looking like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Sorry. I almost died. He took his kids to an amusement park-ish. It's not really an amusement park. It was like a small area where they had like a carousel. So it was kind of a smaller park.
Okay.
And he watched them ride the carousel. He felt in that moment, watching them go round and around, that a new enterprise should be built where all ages could have fun together. So he's like, these kids are having a great time, but like he's looking around at the adults and seeing they're just like standing with the kids, like not having a good time, or like they're sitting away. And he's like, what if we created something that all ages could enjoy?
Yeah.
So he comes up with this idea. And after that, he begins to travel to different amusement parks and basically just observe attractions. So looking at, like, what do adults like? What do kids like? What are they doing when they're not on rides? How excited do they look when they get off the ride? Just, like, he's taking notes, like, literally sitting there with a notebook and writing down the things he's observing. And he basically went from, again, being in the film business to now thinking of the amusement park business. And now he's like, yeah, exactly. He's so talented, you know? So he is now joining into the amusement park business, and he creates WED Enterprises. That stands for his full name. Walt Elias Disney. WED. Again, creative. So now he's organized his idea, and he now is referring his idea as Disneyland. So he's like, I'm going to create something that all ages will enjoy. It's going to be called Disneyland, and he's creating this idea with this enterprise now. And so he uses WED Enterprises as his kind of design center, like his sandbox of like putting these ideas together and coming up with different ways. He looked at 10 different sites to put Disneyland, and he actually went for the first site, Anaheim, because it was so close to the interstate.
I will explain what that is.
I won't touch on that. I won't touch that really quickly.
Don't touch it.
So he submits the Disneyland idea and actually had somebody draw it out. So he like was very specific and like, we need Main Street, we need the castle, we need the different lands. Okay. Now, in 1950, he's also still producing things. Yeah. Obviously, like with Disney. So he creates Alice Infomercial. So it's basically a preview to Alice in Wonderland. Hey. So it's like it's an hour long, not a small. You literally just go to the theaters, watch it for an hour, and then leave. But it's a preview that like kind of shows like an introduction to Alice in Wonderland, but somehow it's not the whole movie.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I don't know. But that idea of like creating a preview to a movie was ahead of its time. Like nobody has done that before. So he then creates Cinderella in 1950. Alice in Wonderland premieres in 1951. Peter Pan, 1953.
Oh, that's a good one. That's what I mixed up.
Oh, yeah.
I mixed up Alice.
How dare
and Peter.
you?
I know.
Man.
I know, I'm bad. I'm not a Disney fan. I'm know what they call him, a Fizney.
A Fizney, fake Disney fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so now they're trying to get the funds for the Disneyland investment. Roy is still working with Walt and trying to help in any way he can, and he reached an agreement with ABC, in which ABC gave Disney a $500,000 investment in Disneyland for an exchange of a weekly Disney TV series called Disneyland.
I gotta check you on that. It was $5 million.
$5 million?
Mm-hmm.
I must have wrote that wrong. I forgot the zeros.
Yeah, it was $5 million. It was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So then they create the show. Do you talk about the show later?
I briefly touch on it.
Okay. He shot his show in color, which was like, it was kind of brave of him. It was new of him. And then we had like Davy Crockett.
You have to think too, like doing it in color, not everyone had color TV. Mm-hmm. So it's just like trying to figure out how they could really I guess if you had a black and white TV, it was just in black and white.
Yeah. So Mickey Mouse Club came out during that time. So during this kind of exchange. And then with Walt creating Disneyland, he kind of had the idea that like some amusement parks, you created them and then they're finished.
Yeah.
But he said Disneyland will never be finished. It's going to consistently change with like what is popular, like what is going on. And so he said that it's going to be something that's always going to be improved and they're always going to work on. Yeah.
I'll touch on that.
Yeah, for sure. But that was kind of his like big quote at the time. Like it will never be finished. We'll never get there. And Walt honestly never ran out of ideas. Like he was a man, and we saw that throughout his whole life. He's a man of let's do this, and just like so eager and so wanting to be out there. His daughter in 1954 got married, and then they had a baby quickly. So he's now a granddad. Granddad? Why did I say that? Grandpa. He's a granddad. What the heck? All right. They celebrated 30 years of marriage in July 1955. And they celebrated at Disneyland just a few days before it opened. Cute. And then it obviously opened in July of that month.
Yeah, they had it at, I think, the Horseshoe Restaurant.
Yeah. And then his other daughter actually ended up getting married in 1959.
Dang.
So I'll let you talk about Disneyland. We'll get to that. But I'm just going to talk about like the rest of his life. In 1961, they had a boy grandson finally. They had a bunch of girls.
Yeah.
They're like, come on, when is a boy going to be born? And then finally they had one and they named him after Walt. So he now had that name they wanted to pass on. He had a bunch of names, so they probably were like, well, name him after you, but then they probably used like a middle name.
I do like the name Elias, though.
I do too.
You don't see that around anymore.
Yeah, and I know it was pretty big back then, but... Okay, in the mid-1960s is when they kind of started using like electronic people and animals. Yeah. So they kind of started using those a little bit more, like the Lincoln in the President's Ride. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to touch too deep into those, but like it was, again, one of his ideas was like, let's create these animatronics, like things that look real, but they're not, obviously, but like, let's find ways to create those for rides.
Freaking Small World.
Yeah, yep. Ugh. And that's what I was about to say. Created It's a Small World in 1966.
Oh my God.
So Mary Poppins was the last motion picture film he created that was like live action, basically. So Mary Poppins went back far into his kids growing up because he would read the book to them. There's a really good movie, Saving Mr. Banks.
Love it.
Yeah, it's so good about like his experience with like making it a movie. But he would read the book to his daughters all the time, and he had this idea of let's make it a film. So that's when they created Mary Poppins in 1964.
Andrews. I love her.
This movie was nominated for 13 Academy Awards, and it won 5, which is pretty good.
That's really good.
Yeah, and with this success and $44 million, they were now able to purchase land for another theme park in 1965. So that movie actually led to Disney World. He's now he's describing his new plans of building an experimental prototype community of tomorrow, also known as Epcot, in Florida. So now he's looking at Florida. The reason why he chose Florida was because it had a lot of tourists in that Orlando area. It had a lot of land they could use, and it was pretty cheap. Pretty good price.
It's huge.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll dip
5 times the size or something like that. Yeah, so, 5 times the size of Disneyland. And he wanted it to also include, like, shopping, entertainment, venues, hotels, etc. So it was going to be bigger than Disneyland. He helped build the ski resort at this time as well. So he's also helping with other projects.
What the heck?
I know. And the reason why this was important is because while he was at a press conference about the ski resort, people started noticing he looked sick and like he wasn't doing well.
Like thinner, kind of around
like
the face.
His face, he just didn't look as like cheery as he normally did. Like he usually carried a smile, but like he just didn't have that. And so, and then right after he was having a cough attack, and somebody came up to him, like one of his good friends, and was like, "You got to stop smoking." Like, come on, bro. Do you hear yourself? His family started being concerned because he kept coughing and it got really bad. So he actually ended up going to have some surgery to kind of get that taken care of. Surgery in his neck, I believe, is what they said. While they were about to put him under for surgery, they actually found a lump the size of a walnut.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And immediately he went into emergency surgery to get that removed.
Yeah.
It just wasn't looking good, and they only gave him 6 months to 2 years to live right after. So he goes back home. They're taking care of him. He's really not doing that well. He's kind of having to put his career on hold. And he collapsed in his home and was admitted to the hospital on December 15th, 1966. So he was born in December, died in December.
Oh my God.
And he passed away at 9:35 a.m., from an acute circulatory collapse.
Aww.
He was buried in Glendale, California. And while he was dead, Roy continued with Disney World, and it opened in October 1971. And then Roy died 2 months later.
Oh my God.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And then I just thought this was interesting. In December 15th, 1997, which was 31 years to the day of Walt's death, Lillian suffered a fatal stroke.
Aww.
On the day of his death, 31 years later. But she died the next day. But still, like, they almost died on the exact same day.
Yeah.
So, that is Walt Disney. I know that was kind of a long story, but he just had so much going on.
He had a very eventful life.
Yeah.
Especially for all the films that he created. Because we were talking earlier about what his last film was, and I believe it was The Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he got to see it finished. But he
Yeah.
was in that process of just the animation and everything.
So then his last movie he actually saw was Mary Poppins.
I think so, because let me look it up. 'Cause I
Unless
don't
that
wanna
was
be
just
wrong.
live action. It might have just been his last.
Okay, so yeah, Jungle Book came out in 1967.
Okay.
So, yeah, they probably made it in 66.
Yeah.
But that's so sad.
Let's talk about Disneyland.
All right. So, you went as a kid, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, when I was like 7, I think.
Same. Around that age.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the rides that you went on? Like, any rides specifically?
Winnie the Pooh was my favorite. I liked the Bugs Life ride because it smelled like watermelons.
Really?
And water shot out at you. And then Alice in Wonderland. I was terrified of, like, everything back then.
Yeah.
Because I had anxiety.
Dude, it was really hard to get you on roller coasters. We would go to amusement park up in Denver.
Yeah, and I hated them.
Yeah,
but then,
would not go on them with us.
A few years later, when I was like 12, I think, my brother dared me to go on every roller coaster at Universal Studios, and he paid me.
Really?
After that, I've always gone on every roller coaster. I love roller coasters. It was just, like, at a young age. I was scared of everything.
Oh, I know. We would be like, hey, Kylie, you want to come on this? And you're like, no, I'm good over here.
Yeah. But now I'm always down for a roller coaster ride.
I think mine that I remember the most was the Dumbo ride. The flying Dumbo ride, just because it started to rain while we were on it. And I don't know why I remember that so clearly. I just remember it just pouring on us. Because California, it doesn't rain all that often.
Yeah.
And just having it rain on us that of all days. I don't remember much of any other rides just because I was so young.
Yeah.
But I do remember getting a Minnie Mouse water bottle. I was obsessed. It was like the one, it was purple. It had Minnie Mouse's head with a bow, and then it had like the little, like the nozzle thing, like the sippy top was like on top of her head.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
I used that thing all the time. I loved it so much. But I haven't been back since.
Oh, really?
It's been years.
I went to Disney World after that, after I was scared of everything, and that's when I wrote everything at Universal. And then my mom was like, let's pretend it's your birthday and just see what happens. So we pretended it was my birthday, and, like, the only cool thing was, like, you got to wear a sticker. Yeah. And then at the parade, they were all like, hi! Like, all the princesses were like, happy birthday! And I was like, Mom, this is so wrong, but I love it. And then I went in 2018 to Disneyland, which was super fun.
Did you?
Yeah. When I was in San Diego, we took a trip there.
I did not know that.
And they had, like, a new pirate woman.
Pirate woman?
Yeah. I don't know her name, but I got a picture with her.
Was it Penelope? Wait.
No.
Pirate woman.
I'll try to find the picture. I don't know.
I had no idea that you went in 2018. I really, man, when my sister and one of our friends they went a couple years ago during Halloween. Oh, I really wanted to go, but I just started school.
Yeah.
And it looked so much fun. I really want to go. It's a dream.
I know. I want to go back. I wasn't there that long ago, but, like, I want to go back.
Yeah. Plus, they're building so much already.
Yeah.
But even though we all dream of Disneyland, wanting to go back there and how much fun it is, opening day sucked. I'm gonna be honest. It just reading about it, watching the broadcast, it looked like an absolute nightmare, especially in 1955. Like, I can't imagine being there opening day.
Oh, yeah.
And it blew my mind. It really blew my mind of just how desperate we are as people to go to something new. Like, it reminds me of just how many people had to wait in line, like, when just recently the In-N-Out opened.
Oh, jeez. Colorado Springs finally got an In-N-Out, and everybody flipped.
Yeah, or opening day of Disneyland was pretty much like that. Chaos, no structure at all, even though they tried so hard. But from the start, it was, from my opinion, from the very beginning, since they started planning it, I could already see that there was a lot of holes in the foundation of
things
them
they
building.
didn't really think of.
Well,
they honestly were kind of in a rush too.
Exactly. I'm gonna start explaining. So the idea of himself, of just like for Walt to create Disneyland, was like 20 years in the making, something like that. Just because he had that idea,
right?
Since going to the amusement parks,
yeah,
which is just it's crazy because you start to have this idea, and then over time, as you're creating these movies, you're like, I want to put what my team has created into an actual ride experience.
It's like combining film and amusement parks.
It was so new.
And nobody ever thought of that.
No, and it's fascinating, and him creating this just exploded around the world. And it's fascinating, and I think that's a really good entrepreneur right there.
Oh, yeah.
Of creating something like that. But, so, you said that he wanted to find that perfect place, and he found it in Anaheim, California. He decided to build it on a 160-acre orange grove. So there was a bunch of oranges there. I bet it smelled fantastic.
I know, he's like, oh, this is not bad. This is a good area.
But like 160 acres for an amusement park now, you'd be like, oh, that's not a lot. But it has grown tremendously over time. And I'll kind of explain that later on. But to build Disneyland cost $17 million.
Oof.
Just the foundation of that in 1954. That's a lot of money still. And then they had ABC pitch in $5 million, and then he did the TV show, which pretty much explain, like, every week he would do, like, an update of, like, this is what to expect from Disneyland. Like, it's going to be amazing. Here are all these wonderful things with Main Street USA. You're going to see this. With all these new lands, you're going to get to experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty much promoting this new theme park that he was creating. The problem with this is that he gave them a very, very short deadline for how much he wanted to build. He gave them 1 year and 1 day to build this place. And that, as soon as I read that, I was like,
that explains it.
This is not going to end well. Right. Because you see, for building a house, it takes a long time.
Right.
Building a freaking theme park, that's going to take a long time. That's just, a year is not enough for 160 acres. Mm-hmm. And even then, they probably weren't even using that much.
I don't even think they can do that nowadays.
No, no, you would need a lot of people, and even then, like, that's a lot of money still. And $17 million, like, I can't imagine if they did 2 years.
Yeah.
How much money they would have to spend on that. So, his brother, Roy, actually had doubts of thinking that, well, Disneyland might fail because it was such a new, unique idea that most people have not seen before.
And that'd be awkward if they spent money and, like, so much time and nobody came.
Exactly.
That would be so
like,
awkward.
They both feared that something like that would happen, and I think Roy, being a businessman, was just thinking of the possible outcomes financially, where Walt was just so headstrong of, like, this is my vision. Yeah. I want it to happen no matter what.
Right.
But Roy's thinking, like, bro.
Yeah.
This may not work. You have to
He's like the realist in this.
Exactly. And Walt is more of just like
the dreamer.
The dreamer, a fantasist. Mm-hmm. I don't even think that's a real word.
I like it.
Whatever.
Fantasist.
So they wanted to create by opening day, they wanted to have about like 20 attractions, but I know on opening day they only had about 13.
Okay.
So I'm just going to name off some the ones I believe. I will mention the ones that weren't going on at the time, because I know in my list that I have here, Peter Pan's flight was not working that day. So they had the Disneyland Railroad, the Mad Tea Party, one of my favorites, Teacups. You had Autopia.
That sounds right.
Yeah. They had Storybook Land Canal Boats, King Arthur Carousel, Casey Jr. Circus Train, Jungle Cruise, Snow White's Scary Adventures, Peter Pan's Flight, that did not work that day, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Main Street Cinema, the Golden Horseshoe, which was a restaurant, and then you had Mark Twain Riverboat.
Man, it's changed.
Yes, tremendously. And this was just starting out. Yeah. This was pretty much his basic idea of what he wanted. And a lot, during them building just these basic rides, there was a lot going on. And they were in a rush. One of the biggest issues that they had, actually, was a plumber strike.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So, and this lasted well over opening day.
Do you know how many people were there opening day?
Yes, I will get to that. There were a lot of people.
With the plumbing. Oh.
Yeah, and so what actually happened was that Walt himself had to decide whether he wanted to have more restrooms or more water fountains.
Yeah.
He decided to have more restrooms because people would tend to pee more than drink.
That makes sense.
So they really lacked that. So that was the big problem that they were having.
They're like, I'm thirsty.
But it's just like they should have prepared for that.
Right.
It's just like with the strike, it's like you're almost close to opening day. You got to figure something out.
They're probably more focused on the rides than they are like of the things that humans will need.
It was a shit show, I'm going to be honest. And then, so they had less water fountains, which dehydration. I will get into how freaking hot it was that
especially
day.
in the summer.
Yeah, they opened at a terrible time in July in California. That's an awful time to open.
Yeah, no.
Disney World, when they opened in October,
yeah.
They did it right.
Yeah.
I think they kind of learned from that, though. Because opening in July, if they did that in Florida.
Oh, in Florida would be so much hotter.
So hot, so humid.
I'm opening another drink. Ignore it.
Oh my god. So they also, and they literally putting all of like the cosmetic. Oh my god.
Sorry, I got it. We're good.
All the cosmetic that they did, like landscaping and just like some of the other important stuff, they literally waited until last minute. Like the morning of, they put asphalt down on Main Street, USA.
The morning of?
Yes.
Oh.
So, and I read this article that this guy, I believe his name was Jonathan Carr. He was there as a kid on opening day, and he was like, I remember when stepping on Main Street USA, and he was like, it felt spongy in that there was like foot tracks, and he thought that, oh, that was just like a kid's fell, it would like be more protection. It just wasn't settled.
My god.
Yeah. But I'll get into more of just the problems that occurred. Like it was okay. So, and then the weeds were still, no one, like with the landscaping, weeds were just everywhere. So like, they still hadn't pulled them.
So it didn't look the best.
No. So they literally put down like Latin names or just like unique names, markers in front of them to give them like special unique qualities. Like it was something better than what it is.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then trees were still being planted. So pretty much everything cosmetic was still being done that same day. Like the paint was still wet. Yeah.
The same day, bro.
Yeah, it was. They waited last minute on that.
That's so stressful.
Yeah, I was just reading
chaotic.
That. I was like, oh no, oh honey, no. So getting to opening day, finally, it was July 17th, 1955. The gates opened at 10 a.m., but people started lining up at 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people were...
They were excited.
Excited, because this was new. It was in their hometown, or it was in their home state. Anybody who wanted to be there was like, I'm going to be there, and that was a problem. Because this caused a 7-mile traffic jam on the Santa Ana freeway. It was a madhouse, and just seeing so many people waiting there. And the big problem with that, though, air conditioning and cars didn't really exist.
Oh,
so people were
Lord.
freaking hotboxing in their cars, burning, because not only was it a 7-mile traffic jam, it was 100 degrees that day. It almost made record for that time. Because it was just so hot, and people, like a bunch of workers,
even
were
at
like,
that time, like before 10 a.m.
I think it rose, but probably around noon it hit.
Yeah,
100, and people
were still trying to get in at noon.
Because you have to think, what do people wear in the 1950s?
Oh yeah,
big bulky dresses. Women do.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine dying in that with your just fanning yourself, and then men are wearing pants, because men wearing just like shorts like that were only for like going on boat rides or like the country club, whatever. You see more boys wearing them than men.
Yeah.
It wasn't as common. But so 15,000 people were invited. So this included family, friends, the workers at Disney Productions, like their
and all
family.
Of their families. Okay.
Yeah, and so it was supposed to average around 15,000 people, but of course others get the word of it in how desperate
and they see the show.
People. Yes, and so he's promoting it so much, but it's just opening day was just supposed to be about family, close knit, but that didn't happen. 28,154 people entered that park opening day.
Oh my.
And it ensued so much chaos. But tickets were I was reading the ticket list and I was like, oh my god, I just want to go back in time.
How much was it?
For entering into the park, for an adult, it was $1.
Oh my god.
For a child, it was 50 cents. But the unique thing about this is that you had to pay per ride.
How much was each ride?
So it varied from 10 cents to 50 cents per ride then. But you could also get a ticket book for $4.75. So that had like multiple, like, so you pay $4.75 for like a book to go on this many rides.
Okay.
And I was just like, it's so weird to see something like that, but just seeing how cheap tickets are, like
now it's like $200.
I did the math. I just looked it up because I was very curious on like the difference now, and I'll get to that in the end. But it's phenomenal. $1 to get in. Jeez. But even then, people were desperate enough to they would do anything to get into the park opening day.
I mean, if you don't know if it's going to be successful, you don't want to set it too high.
Mm-hmm. But then again, like, you have to think of the time.
Yeah.
And it's starter, so.
Right.
You knew. But opening day was not only just the word of mouth and him doing a TV show every week. They also had a broadcast, a 90-minute broadcast. Over 70 million people tuned into it.
Oh, wow.
At the time, there was about 165 million in the country.
Dang.
That many people, yeah. It blows my mind. That's crazy. Many people had TVs.
Right?
But, so it was actually broadcasted on ABC. They were pretty close-knit with ABC. Even now, like, if you look at ABC Family or Freeform, whatever
they play a lot of
Disney. They have Disney weekends. A lot of their Halloween movies are all Disney. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that they're still pretty close-knit with one another. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, it was about an hour and a half, which was really interesting. This broadcast did not show the chaos that was going on at Disneyland. They were making it seem like it was the greatest place on earth, that it was a fantasy that you wanted to go to, that it drew you in.
That's still what it does. They don't show you the like crazy kids running around crying.
No, they don't. Because they wanted you to go there, and they will film what they wanted.
Happiest place on earth.
But like they had to. There's a few remarks that I made in my notes that I was just like, oh god, because I watched this broadcast a while back, and it was interesting. It was really unique to see them promote such a new idea and just like who did it. Guess who hosted? He was a president.
Reagan.
Yeah, I had no idea. I don't really care much about the U.S. presidents, like history, like U.S. history is not my forte because I don't really like government history, like U.S. government history. Right. But when I saw Ronald Reagan, I was like,
what he was an entertainer.
Well, yeah, he was an actor, and I was like, that makes so much sense.
Right.
But like in the broadcast, he looked so much younger. Because he was young then. But I found that so fascinating just to see him being an entertainer and then a president.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess anything can happen, really. But, so, it wasn't only Ronald Reagan, but they had Art Linkletter.
What?
Art Linkletter.
That's a person's name?
Yeah.
Art Linkletter.
Yeah.
Art
Linkletter.
Letter?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And then they had Bob Cummings.
Okay.
They were pretty handsome. But
Ronald was too.
Yeah.
Yummy.
Oh my god. It's getting late. It's 9 o'clock. It's my bedtime. But so the three of them throughout the entire broadcast were just going back and forth with one another, and Walt would come in every now and then, and just like watching him in the broadcast he seemed like he was trying to force himself to, like, really be happy and excited about it and just be really encouraged. But in his eyes, you can kind of see a little bit of distraught.
He's probably a nervous wreck.
Well, yeah, he was really
stressed.
He didn't really know what was going on in the park, like, all of the crazy shit that was going on. It was more so, like, the nerves of, like, are people enjoying themselves? Like,
well, and he's probably being interviewed all day. Like,
exactly.
He doesn't have time to go look at what's actually happening.
No. And that was probably a big thing, is that he was probably nervous about, like, what was going on.
Yeah.
And so what they filmed first, they did a little bit of, like, the parade, because they had, like, the introduction parade, and that's become such a huge thing for Disney to always have their parades. And then they had a dedication ceremony just, like, in the beginning. It was just, like, dedicating. They had, like, the military there just to, like, do the...
like, honor them?
Yeah, and it was pretty nice to see. It was cool. And it also showed the different lands that Walt Disney created for Disneyland. So you had Frontierland, which really looked at the Old West, like his...
Davy Crockett.
Yeah, like pretty much Walt's interpretation of the Old West.
Yeah.
That people wanted to really get into. And, like, Frontierland didn't have a lot of rides at the time because they weren't it wasn't, like, a lot of the lands were not entirely finished.
Right.
Because they didn't have the time.
Just general ideas.
Yeah. So they were still, like, creating a lot of the rides, and you'll see more, like, kind of pop up within a year or so. Like, they just started to go at it, like, hard.
It'll never be finished.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're still building it to this day, like, different
Everything
things.
changes all the time.
Yeah. And they had Adventureland, which kind of had a very unique part of it. I'm looking at it. So that's where they had Jungle Cruise, was in Adventureland. And they had real animals first when they were doing, like, the whole safari and jungle cruise and stuff.
Yeah.
But then it was introduced to, like, maybe use animatronics instead, because it'll be easier and you won't be, like, harming, like, any animals, even though that wasn't, like, the intention. It's just, like, taking care of actual animals is a hard thing to do when you can just get animatronics and still have that, like...
Well, yeah, and they're going to be asleep at different times. Like, you may not experience them fully.
Yeah, so it kind of gives you that, like, unique perspective of just seeing, like, animals in their natural habitat, but they're, like, metal.
I thought they were real when I was a kid.
I think I'm very... Did that.
I'm very, what's it called? I believed it.
Naive.
Yeah, I was like, well, is that a real hippo? Like, no, obviously not, but...
God.
I was anxious.
And then you had Fantasyland, which is
Princesses, right?
Yeah, so that's where Sleeping Beauty's castle was.
Yeah. Or Cinderella's castle.
No, Sleeping Beauty's.
Oh, yeah.
Cinderella's is in Orlando.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird because Sleeping Beauty wouldn't come out for another 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very weird how
they just kind of built a castle.
Yeah,
they didn't know where it would be.
Yeah, well, they still called it Sleeping Beauty's castle, but they hadn't even thought of...
Was the movie created after the...
Yeah, it was...
What?
The movie was in 1959.
Boringest movie ever.
I mean, it could have been...
It's not that
better,
boring,
but, like, Philip was, like, the real character in the entire movie. And the fairies, I mean, they were like, oh, geez.
I don't think I ever finished it.
Really?
I'm
pretty sure we watched it on VHS.
I didn't like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White.
Okay.
I thought Snow White was annoying. I was a very judgmental child.
I can tell. Yes. You had your opinions.
I did. Strong opinions.
I just loved watching movies, especially Disney movies. We had, Erica, my sister, got the Dr. Seuss books, and I got all of the Disney ones, like children's books.
Yeah.
I told her, as soon as, like, we both, like, moved out, I was like, I'm taking the Disney ones. you can have the Dr. Seuss. And she was like, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, good. Done. Done deal. Let's write a contract.
Right. You can't steal them.
No. So Fantasyland pretty much was every kid's dream because it had all of, like, the Disney Productions themed rides in it.
After their favorite movies, like.
Exactly. And they loved it. And then you had Tomorrowland. So Tomorrowland was what they predicted the future to be, like 1986 is what the year they were predicting. And I'm like, I don't see any freaking parachute pants.
What was there at the time?
They had that Autotopia.
Oh, yeah.
In the future, and then they had it was more futuristic. Like they had like workers dressed as like astronauts and stuff, and it was really unique and kind of ahead of its time to think of like, oh, well, we're going to walk on the moon.
Right.
And one of the rides actually wasn't going on that I'll mention. So it was called A Rocket to the Moon. The ride wasn't going that day. So there was like 3 or 4 different rides that weren't working that day that were like pretty big.
Huh.
So I just want to make a note that I actually watched this part of the broadcast because they made a note of it, and I watched the clip.
Yeah.
Freaking Bob Cummings was caught on film making out with a woman before he turned around to start hosting again.
He had no idea?
No, at first the camera zooms in on him just making out with this lady, and I'm pretty sure someone was like, hey dude, you're on, and he was like, oh shit, and this lady just was like, okay, and just walked off, and he was like, hello.
That is so funny.
And they caught it on the broadcast, and it was live too, so they couldn't cut it out.
Oh my god. I was
just like, oh my god, that's hilarious. I thought that was really funny.
That's so good.
So now we're going to get to the actual problems that were occurring on the day. So the broadcast itself was pretty successful, but that day was not. From the day on, they would call the opening day of Disneyland Black Sunday because it was just so much.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot that went wrong, but it's like you didn't give them enough time to really make sure everything was right.
And nobody really got to like test things out. Like you didn't have a small group coming, you know?
No, it was right on the spot. But just, having 28,000 people show up when you were only expecting 15,000, that's going to cause like some serious issues. And of course, people were then pissed about like how everything went wrong. It's like, well, why do you think?
What were you expecting? Yeah. It's the trial run day. Like
exactly. They were expecting like less than half of what showed up.
Yeah.
Of course, they were not going to be prepared. And this was like an entirely new concept, so they didn't really know what to think. But it's like they also were just, everybody has high expectations, and it's just like, dude, lower your standards.
Right.
So the 28,000 that got into the park, this was because of counterfeit tickets. So people were creating, I honestly don't know how they got their hands on just creating these fake tickets, but honestly it's not that hard because they're paper. I'm pretty sure tickets now are mostly just like on your phone, and it's a lot harder to make counterfeit. But these tickets were very unique. They were all different colors. They had pretty much like one of them that I saw would like had like the labeling on it was like for the press, because the press also got to enter into the park. And in the corner, it had a time where you were supposed to get in. So they would have that flow of people coming in and out, like how it is now, to make like a reservation. But you have like a set time, but no one was following that. Everyone wanted to spend their entire day there, were wanting to get there at the earliest time possible.
They didn't have time to check all the times.
No, like people were just like, hey, I have my ticket, probably covering the day, like, hey, can I go in? And they're probably just like so distraught with how many people showed up that they were like, go on through, whatever, we got this.
Right.
And it wasn't until later that all the tickets that they were gathering were like, this is way more than what was supposed to be handed out.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of 15,000 that they counted, they're like, why do we have 28,000 tickets? It's like, these aren't correct.
Dang.
But the people that who didn't buy the counterfeit tickets, I just found this to be so ridiculous, but funny, is that people would bring ladders, put it against the wall, made people pay $5 to actually climb the ladder to get into the park.
What?
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, people were paying $5
That's commitment.
to get into the park. Yeah. I agree, especially seeing like children and women going up there.
It's not really shocking because...
No, because people are desperate to go into things like that because they wanted to get their children like the best day possible. But yeah, the guy who did the interview when he went, he was like, I'm pretty sure my tickets were genuine. Uh-huh. But he kind of had that like, where did they get these tickets
like, I don't know, though.
Yeah. So it's like you never really, it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah. So, those waiting by the cars were, like, in their cars were overheating. And I can't imagine if you were one of the people who actually had a real ticket waiting in that line.
Oh, I know.
Oh, God, that'd be so
They got
sad.
ripped off.
Yeah. Pretty much. And just having no air.
Did the line ever stop?
Probably not.
So, like, some people never got in the first day?
I'm guessing not, just because there's limited parking, too.
Yeah.
Because it was 100.
Hopefully they got to come the next day.
I know, at that point, like, if you know, Walt be like, hey, my family didn't get to go in because no one was monitoring how many people were getting in. And this would cause a very big issue later on, but the 3 rides that were closed that day were Rocket to the Moon, Peter Pan, and the Dumbo ride, because they just...
weren't ready.
They weren't ready.
Peter Pan is such a good ride. My goodness.
I believe I remember that one.
Super fun.
God, I was so young, I can't. But the Dumbo one, I was just like, wow, it wasn't even open.
I like how they've kept a lot of the old ones. Like, I know you'll talk about it later, but, like... It's really cool that they kept the originals.
Yeah, like the Snow White ride.
Even though the Snow White ride is terrifying for children.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they were even... Oh, my God. The controversy that's recently come up about, like, consent of, like, Prince Charming or Florentine kissing her. And I was like, are we really going to do this?
Like, we're moving on, and I'm glad we're thinking of that now, but, like, we can't really go back.
It's still like an iconic ride for them, and I'm just like, okay, we're moving forward.
Yeah.
But then I believe it wasn't until 1958 that the Alice in Wonderland ride actually was developed, but that one's pretty cool. I want to go on that one, because you kind of like enter into Wonderland from like the door and whatnot, which is really cool.
Very colorful.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's like a freaking acid trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because it was so populated that day with like 28,000 people throughout the day, it caused a food shortage. So they only had like amount for what they thought they were going to have.
People are getting hangry.
Yeah, so they were selling out of like every food source that they had, because they didn't expect that many people to show up, and it's just like you gotta over prepare. Under. But popcorn was like a really big one that people would get. Even in the interview, he was saying that like mothers were giving their children maple syrup because they had nothing else. Like there was no candy because everybody bought the candy and stuff. I was like,
they're like, here's some syrup. Put out your hand. Just pour it in there.
It's so gross.
Drink it out of your hands.
Come on, little Susie. It's like, you should have brought water. It was going to be a hot day. But then again, it's like 1955, so I don't know how it works.
I mean, they probably assumed they'd be getting, more food.
Yeah, but I just thought that was just really sad. And then the asphalt being just...
not ready.
Not ready. Women's heels were sinking into it.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, because their heels were
they had to redo it anyway.
Looking at pictures from opening day and watching women wear these 1950 dresses with their heels, I'm like, how did you wear this all day long?
I know. Walking around Disney is a full-on hike.
Mm-hmm. It's also like 3 times the size now.
Right.
But it's just still.
They honestly should have kept the asphalt like that, and you could still see it today, like the footprints. That'd be so funny.
That would be really cool. Just Black Sunday.
And you can, it will be like in memory of Black Sunday.
Oh God. It might be. I wonder if they repaved it then, because it was.
They had to have.
Yeah, probably. Because there was already the imprints.
Yeah.
That's funny. That would be so awesome. Another crazy thing that happened was that the Mark Twain riverboat sank.
Oh, Lord.
In the middle of it. And 500 people were crammed on the boat at once. I was just like, what makes you think that this boat was going to stay afloat?
They're like, yeah, everybody get on.
And so it started to sink and, like, fall over, but they pushed it up to get it back to, like, the landing. And only half the people got off before it fell over again.
How many people are on it now? Like, I hope they learned their lesson.
Yeah, they did. They've restricted the amount of people, but it's opening day and everybody was just like, oh, we're going to fit.
You probably couldn't control them.
And then you sink.
Yeah.
And they already they probably spent a lot of money on building that canal.
Oh, yeah.
Not like that's, whoo-wee.
Yeah.
That was not
a fun time.
But that wasn't the end of it, though.
Lord.
It's so sad. So, Sleeping Beauty's castle kind of caught fire.
What?
There was a gas leak going on, and Jonathan Carr, he remembers seeing one of the windows inside it catch fire, and there was a fire. And I was like, oh my God, poor castle's on fire. That's just like a visual representation of the day. The castle's on fire.
Oh my. Yeah.
It's just.
It's like, what else can go wrong?
Luckily, they put it out before, like, any major, like, destruction happened. But no one goes inside the castle, so it wasn't, like.
Yeah.
Anybody was gonna, like, witness it.
It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it was kind of just there. It's decoration. I think sometimes, like, the princesses will, like, come out of, like, the windows and wave to everybody. I think that's the only thing
they
they'll
have
do.
A restaurant in there, too.
Oh, shit, really?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was later that they built that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Dang. I know there's, like, a special, what is it, club something? There's, like, a specific, like, restaurant or, like, bar or whatever that's in Disneyland that's for, like, really popular rich people.
Oh.
I can't remember what it's called. My coworker told me, and I can't remember. God dang it.
Come on.
If y'all can tell me, please do, because I can't remember her name. So, I don't know if this next one was on opening day, but it did happen. So, they had, like, a circus attraction there.
Yeah.
A tiger and panther got out.
Oh, my.
And they brawled in Main Street, USA.
What?
In front of people, yeah. They were just fighting each other, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this was opening day, but it happened. I saw this on one of the articles I read, and I was like, oh, I have to do deeper. I was like, did this actually happen?
That's so funny.
And it did, and I was just like, no kidding. I was like, that's funny, but that's crazy.
Oh my.
Just imagine enjoying your popcorn.
You just hear,
and you're like Mickey Pretzel, and you just see this Black Panther and this tiger come running at each other.
And the kid's just like, look, Mom!
Yeah, they just start beating on each other, growling. Oh my God, I would lose my shit. And the funny thing is, they don't have like serious like digital cameras or telephones, like cell phones,
so they never documented it. Like,
well, they can't really show pictures, but I bet you if that happened today, it would be viral.
Oh, they'd get sued. How did they get the animals back in?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It never went into description of
hopefully
how they
no humans were harmed.
it. Yeah, and then another, I think it was a different day, there was like a horde of llamas that...
Oh my God. Get your animals under control.
Everything goes down Main Street, USA. But it was like a horde of llamas. That would be James's, like, dream. My boyfriend, he loves llamas. It would be his dream. But, so, the next big thing that happened was that in Autotopia, it was kind of like driving a car. Like, a kid gets to drive, like, go-karts.
Yeah.
It was, like, a nice, cool version. It was
still has it, yeah.
Yeah, it was in Tomorrowland, and so people thought, oh, my God, like, this is the next thing to, like, really show people, like, drive together. And I was like, literally, you're preparing them to drive in traffic in California.
Not on a racetrack.
But the crazy thing is that 36 cars crashed because of aggressive driving.
Oh, my.
I was like, no shit.
Well, obviously.
That I made for the opening day problems, I just put people were pissed.
Oh, I bet. After all those?
Oh, yeah. They were so mad because they were running out of everything, like food, drink. They didn't have enough water fountain. Like, they hardly had any water fountains. Like, the bathrooms were probably shit.
Right. Everything is just a mess.
Yeah, and then rides kept breaking down, kept getting stuck, and it just...
It makes sense, honestly. It's
does.
the first day.
It does, and I think a lot of people don't realize that first days are not perfect.
Right.
And that's...
If anything.
With an iconic quote from Walt Disney is to keep moving forward.
Right.
Because that's what you have to do in situations like this. You have to keep prevailing, and he did.
Yeah.
He was terrified that it wasn't going to work, but here we go into after opening day. So it still had its issues, like the horde of llamas.
Lord. After that, I'd be like, okay, we're done here.
But, like, they learned from that day. And everybody, like, I'm pretty sure Roy, after that day, was like, this is going to fail. So Disney actually invited the press back, like, to the second day after opening day, just stating, like, hey, yesterday was awful. I'm going to admit. It was bad. This is not what Disneyland should be about.
Yeah. We
were just shell-shocked and underprepared because we didn't know that many people were going to show up. So for the next day, it went a little bit better, and then he really got to, like, show the real experience for Disneyland of what he wanted. And I'm pretty sure that, like, maybe they had more things planted. People probably worked all night to get most of the stuff done for second day. But within 7 weeks, there was 1 million guests that went to the park. 7 weeks. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's a lot of people, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to come. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And now it's a billion-dollar industry.
Mm-hmm.
Both the Walt Disney
owns
production,
everything.
Yeah, they do. And just this really, Disneyland influenced all the different parks. So you have the one in Orlando, Florida. You have, that's Disney World, though. You have Paris, Disneyland. You have Tokyo. You have Shanghai and Hong Kong's Disneyland. And then they all have, like, their resorts.
Yeah.
That just, like, triple the amount for Disney. And then they have the cruises, too.
Yeah.
Like, I've always wanted to go on a Disney
that'd be
cruise.
amazing.
Oh, those always look so much fun, but they're not cheap.
And then downtown Disney.
Mm-hmm.
All of the, like, restaurants and shops.
Yeah, and then they have, like, just Disney stores. Like, we have the one up in Denver. It's crazy how much this expanded because people, even though opening day sucked, or it didn't go according to plan, I should say, it still just intrigued people.
Yeah.
They really wanted to experience this because it was new. And they really appreciated that. So today, I decided to do a little research more about Disneyland today. Guess how much one ticket is with no hopper passes and just for one day?
I think it was 120 or something like that.
Pretty close. So I actually looked it up for this year's pricing because
it's different.
They're labeled. Yeah, their pricing is different for every day, and I decided to look at July 17th for like their opening day. For one ticket with no like hopper pass, no fast pass or whatever, it's $154 for one person.
Okay.
Like an adult ticket. $19.55 adult ticket just to enter. $1.
Right.
It went to $154.
It's only going to get more expensive.
Yeah. And it's crazy. But, like, they're also building so much more. Because it went from 160 acres to 500. It has expanded so much because they added so many new worlds to it. Like, they have...
Star Wars!
Yeah, they have Star Wars. They have, what is it? California Adventure.
Yeah.
They have the New Orleans Square.
Yeah.
They have, oh god, they have a few others. Because I know that in the general park for Disneyland, there is 53 attractions. And then if you include California Adventure, there is an added 37.
Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And it's not nearly as big as Disney World, but for having only 500 acres, like that.
They fit a lot in the space.
Yeah, they fit a lot. And there's probably a lot of shops and restaurants. Because I know there's like a tiki restaurant that's really big.
The tiki room. And you get to see the show with all the... I love the tiki room.
And then I believe...
Dole Whip. Dole Whip's so good.
I heard they're pretty good. I have not tried them because I need to get my butt there.
So good. If you like pineapple, you'll love it.
I like eating
or
pineapple.
Orange. They have orange too. I don't like orange, but the pineapple ice cream is bomb.
Ooh.
That's all it is.
Ooh. So, but yeah, the park is growing every year. They are, I think, they just opened Star Wars Land. And I believe they're trying to open another one. But I can't remember. But it's growing. It is growing every year. They're replacing some of the older rides that people love. And, of course, that causes, like, controversy. Like, why would you get rid of this ride? Because they did that with the Hollywood Tower. Their, like, version of Tower of Doom or whatever
Tower
it's called.
Terror.
Yeah, Tower of Terror. They turned that into the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. And then they created the whole Marvel land over there.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that they've been doing that. But I just wanted to add, like, a quick like, side note of just Disney World, too, just because you kind of hit on it. And I just wanted to hit on something that, like, was really important to Walt Disney. Because he wanted this for whatever land that he was going to create next, which was Disney World, and that was the tunnels. Because seeing the cast members go from one side to the other dressed in their costumes, he didn't like that idea of seeing them in costumes that didn't match whatever land it was in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he did not like that. He thought it was just that it got them out of character.
It ruined the magic.
It ruined that magic. He wanted them to stay strictly in their world. And so when they were creating Disney World, he thought of, like, because this took years to do, and then Roy took over when he died in 1966. But what he wanted was a system where they could just pop up. And then when they're done, go down, pop up somewhere else in, like, their other clothes. Like, they wanted them to figure out a system to where they didn't have to cross over. And this whole park was, like, 27,000 acres, I believe I saw. This park is massive. Disney World is massive. And so having tunnels that go all throughout the park, that's a lot of square feet.
It's not as great as Disneyland. I've been to both, and Disneyland is better.
I just went to Epcot. I don't think we actually went into, like, Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom. We just went strictly to Epcot.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
I just remember seeing the big glass dome.
It's really cool in there. The ride in there is super cool.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got in that. I don't remember.
But Universal Studios in Florida is way better than the California one.
Yeah, we didn't go to the one in California. I know we went to the one in Florida. That was fun.
Hulk roller coaster. Spider-Man ride. All right, anyway, this has nothing to do with Disney.
I know.
Sidetracked.
So, they call these tunnel systems the utilidors.
Oh.
Yeah, so
words.
I know. So this pretty much meant that cast members can move throughout the park without being bombarded or just like if they had to go be a different character or something, they didn't have to worry about like little kids being like, oh, can I get a picture? And it's just like, I gotta go, but I can't say no because I gotta stay in character.
Yeah.
So this really helps. So there was about 392,000 square feet of tunnels.
Oh, wow.
There was a lot, and there was a lot going on down there. So there was about approximately 1.2 million costumes that the cast members would go in and out of, which makes sense because if you have like different people being different princesses, and then you have to think of all the themed ones, like if they're doing like a Halloween one or a Christmas one, or just like anything, because there's probably like a bunch of Mickey costumes. Just so y'all know that opening day Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse are freaking terrifying.
Look it up, please.
Do it. It is that I sent.
You might have nightmares.
I sent Kylie photos earlier of just me looking at them. I was like, here's a nightmare I'm gonna have.
Yeah.
And then I sent her one of Donald Duck, and I was like,
oh my lord, one. Please look it up, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna have nightmares tonight about
Oh yeah, we need you to have nightmares too, so look it up. We can't be alone in this.
Y'all need nightmares. So, the crazy thing about these tunnels is that there's like a trash system that like kind of brings all the trash down there from the streets, so there's like no trash on the streets. And so they have like that whole system down there to work with like putting the trash. So I thought that was very interesting. And then you can actually tour the tunnels.
Really? I thought it was like secretive.
So it's about a 5-hour tour. It's called Disney's Key to the Kingdom. It's currently unavailable because COVID. But when it was open, it was about $100.
Okay.
So I honestly, if you're like a super diehard Disney fan, like that would be a great opportunity for you. Or if you live in Orlando, as someone who's like, I love Disney, I really do, but I'm not doing a 5-hour tour on my trip there when I could be going to the actual park itself. Like it would be something like, oh, if I go there again, maybe. But and then they have, I thought this was really cool, but they have a command center there. So pretty much what it does is it monitors just how fast the lines are going, how congested they're being, and it's just like this quick system that they could just press and be like, hey, this is, this ride is, the line is like getting backed up, add more boats or add more, just like whatever thing that people are getting into, add more of them.
Yeah.
We need to get more going because we are running low and we need these lines to get by faster. They use this system just to make the people happy and make more of a profit because they knew that the happier that people were, the quicker the lines went, that meant more people.
It means everything was better overall.
Exactly. So this worked a lot in Disney World's favor. Of course, like with Disneyland, it's a little bit harder now because they would have to completely reconstruct the underground, which is harder to do. But because of Disney World, they already had this idea from Walt. They were, as soon as they were building the foundation for Disney World, that they're like, we're going to pretty much build the tunnels and then put Disney World on top.
Okay.
And it's worked so well for them because now they don't have to worry about that, where I'm sure they have a system at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Not really sure what it is, but with Disney World, they figured it out, which nothing's wrong with it. But I heard that, just like getting off on a side note, I heard that like Paris's and Tokyo's is really pretty.
Oh, I'd love to go one day. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be. I would love to go to all the different parks and in like Paris, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. I would love to see their adaptations of Disneyland because it adds...
It's all different.
Well, yeah, because it adds their culture into it, which is the greatest part because that's pretty much like for him, he was trying to add...
Yeah, he wanted everyone to be involved.
Yeah, and especially now with Disney creating the films of diversity, it's like it's important to see that too in their parks, which they have done, which is amazing. But... So, pretty much, Disney World was open October 1st, 1971. It is great that they did it at that time because it was cooler, even though it's still Florida. And Disney has pretty much flourished since then. Like, COVID may have knocked them back, but
they're still kicking.
They really are, and I think
Disney World opened back up like a long time ago.
Yeah,
Florida doesn't care as much as California.
Florida's a party.
Yeah,
but they have Disney Plus, which I think
best purchase.
Oh, I know. I love watching all my old favorites. I've been watching all of the Marvel movies in order because there's some of them that I have not seen, and I was like, oh, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, all the Star Wars movies. There's so much on it.
I still have not seen Star Wars.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
I love Disney.
It will never die. It will always expand.
It's still expanding.
And it's impressive that he could build something like that. Like, that would never go away, you know? So
it really leaves his mark because they have the statue of him holding Mickey's hand. And that's just, like, such a significant statue.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So
I want to go to Disney now.
I know, me too.
Let's book a trip.
I need to. I would love to go.
We just shut up at the same time. All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
I know this was a longer episode, so if you stuck through to the end,
thank you.
You are the best.
So, do you have any?
Oh, what we learned.
Yeah.
Crap.
What did you learn?
I learned that I never know if I should be serious or not for this. Because I'm like, I could just make it a joke, because I'm not, like, a super serious person, but, like, honestly, I didn't realize, like, how inspiring Walt was, and, like, doing research on him, besides just, like, what people have said about him, because people give him a bad, like, annotation, but, like, truly seeing his determination, it's inspiring.
It's motivating.
It is. So, my piece of advice is, if you need to change your job or your passions in life, that's okay.
Follow Elias.
Yeah, you can keep changing it, and you're going to get somewhere, and it doesn't matter if you don't get somewhere. Like, as long as you're doing what you love, you know? And I think he did a great job at showing that, especially in a time where, like, being an entrepreneur was, like, so risky.
Yeah.
And it was like, why aren't you, like, following in your dad's footsteps? I mean, he kind of was, because his dad did everything he wanted, but, yeah.
Legit. Like,
he's truly inspiring, like, his passion and his willingness to never give up.
I appreciate that.
It feels weird being this serious right now. Also, don't, wear creepy costumes, like what they had the first day.
God, they're so terrible.
What did you learn?
I learned that I appreciate Elias with his job changes.
Right? Iconic man.
Iconic.
Doing what he can for the family.
Doing what he can.
That family was like, let's move to Chicago. Nah.
Let's go back to Missouri.
Nah, let's go back to Chicago. Maybe we'll go to LA.
Yeah.
Oh, Portland? No? There. Just like, wow.
I think one of my favorite quotes, though, from Walt Disney is keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Because I take that to heart just because there could be so many things that knock you down, but it's just to keep moving forward. Because in the end, like, as long as you just put your work and effort into it, like, something will come out of it. Like, it may take a while, but, like, for him, it took a while, but eventually he got to it.
Yeah.
But I know, I love Disney, that I even have a quote tattooed on my ankle, because Disney just has such inspirational just messages that I really appreciate, and for him to really just kind of emphasize that you can do this too is just really motivating.
I had a quote by him that I loved. It was at the end of a recent movie. It kind of, it was with the, like, keep moving forward, but the entire quote is beautiful. I'm going to read it real quick because it's just so inspirational. Around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Mm-hmm. I have that, like, in my classroom, because I always tell my kids, like, stay curious!
Yeah.
So, I love that quote.
It's just, it's good. I really enjoyed this topic just because I actually in college had to do just like pretty much a business related topic, and I was like, let's do Disneyland.
Heck
it's
yeah.
$1 billion industry, like why not? And I had so much fun with it. Like I was excited to really do this topic.
Yeah.
Just because it's so motivating just to see how awful it started out, but just how much they built from it.
And they're going to keep building.
Exactly.
Keep moving forward. You know what I'm saying?
Moving forward. That's what
you got to do.
Yes. So thank you for hanging in here. We appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll see what we do next week. It's a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Well, thank you. I gotta go let my dog out.
Yeah.
So we will see.
We'll get back to normal life now. All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.